Sūrah al-Munāfiqūn, Surah number 63. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاءك المنافقون قالوا نشهد إنك لرسول الله والله يعلم إنك لرسوله والله يشهد إن المنافقين لكاذبون. Munafiqun, the surah as the name says, is about those who fake their belief in Islam. They show that they believe, but they don't believe in their hearts. So they are hypocrites, that they say they are something, but they are not. The level of deception, which is heinous evil, and that is why they are in the lowest grade of Jahannam. إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار. There's no greater sin after shirk than nifaq, hypocrisy, where you are pure evil because you want to deceive people. So the deception, obviously, the jali sifa, that you say something and you're not that. And so, different levels and, unfortunately, grades of nifaq, hypocrisy. This is the worst, which this surah speaks of, is the worst type of munafiq that displays iman, but they are not. And they hide enmity, animosity against Muslims and Islam, and they hate Allah, they hate the Rasul, they hate the Quran, but they show and appear as if they're in love with Allah and the Rasul and the Quran, which is just pure evil. And they're worse than the kafir, in the sense that the kafir doesn't necessarily deceive people. He says who he is, so they're straight up, basically. The munafiq plays games and takes pride in mocking other human beings and, taking advantage of their good nature and so on. So this munafiqun, obviously, in the context of the surahs of this juz which I mentioned, where you want to keep the unity of the Muslims intact. These are the worst enemies of Islam because they are, deceptive. And they can only survive by being deceptive. So they're innately evil. There's no hope for them. This group was banished later on after the Ghazwa at Tabuk by the Prophet ﷺ. After Tabuk came in the 9th year of Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ stood in the masjid and announced all the munafiq in his congregation, every single one of them. So he said, you are munafiq, go away. You munafiq, you are, go away. So through wahi, he was informed by name that this one is a munafiq. And that was a total disgrace to them. Then they were driven out from the masjid, even though they might have been standing next to Muslims in prayer, and so on. Then he gave a list of the munafiq of this ummah to Hudayfa radiyallahu anhu. And that list obviously is with him. He died with the list. We don't know who they are, etc. Omar would always beg Hudayfa, and he said, I can't tell you, it's confidential. He said, well, tell me that I'm not on the list. So Hudayfa reassured him, you're not on the list. But that's the level of taqwa I should have. Umar, a great, obviously, Muslim, second Khalifa, he was scared that he might just be a munafiq. There's a possibility that, am I deceiving people? Am I doing this service to Islam for name and fame and game and pleasantries, which is what these people did? I mean, they only came into Islam because they wanted ghanima, booty, name and reputation and all of the fame. So that is how the munafiq. Sūrah al-Munāfiqūn is a lesson for the Muslim who takes Allah for granted, who takes his deen for granted, who takes Islam for granted, who takes his Rasul for granted. So although the message is severely against the munafiq, but it has a colossal impact on the level of fear every Muslim should have. Don't be complacent about your Islam. You don't know who you are until you die. And that Umar's message to the Ummah is the same. That, I can be as good as gold, but God forbid, if I'm not written amongst the believers in Allah's books, then I'm a failure, I'm a loser. So it's a lesson. Usually we use these ayat to taunt people, right? Like with the Ahl Kitab, as I mentioned. We use the ayat to, just desecrate them and say that these are losers. But the message is also for the Muslim that if you are a religious community, you don't want to end up like this religious community. There's no guarantee. That they became evil even after the signs came to them. Even after they knew this is the Torah, and even that they knew this is the Torah and Musa's order, even after knowledge, they did not reconcile and they remained evil. So that's the message for the Muslim community, as the Prophet ﷺ said to the Ummah, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ السُّنَنَ مَنْ قَبْلَكُمْ, that indeed you will definitely follow the path of those who came before you. So the Sahaba asked, Al-Yahud wal-Nasara. Then the Prophet said, then who else? You will follow the rabbit hole. If the Ahl Kitab goes into rabbit hole, you will follow the Ahl Kitab into the rabbit hole. And that is the plight of the Ummah. Everything they do, we do. Meaning that it's a severe warning to the Muslim community that if you claim to be a religious community, don't take Islam for granted, don't take Iman for granted. Have a level of taqwa that Allah can punish us if He sees that we're not on the right path. It's a slippery slope, that. You do have to walk on eggshells if you want to maintain that level of taqwa. And Islam. So this munafiq, that there are levels of kufr, okay, and the worst level of kufr is this one, where it's total deception and just pure evil. So this is what the surah is informing us and telling us, that we have to shape up. And then the test comes, as you'll see at the end of the surah, there'll be a test to show if you are munafiq or not. If you pass the test, then you're okay, inshallah. If you don't, if you fail, then you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, let me revisit myself and reevaluate who am I in my own heart in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a disease the Quran calls nifaq a disease. Fi qulubihim maradun. In the hearts there is a disease, there is an illness, a sickness. فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا, and the natural effect of that disease is going to grow. Right? It's like cancer, it just grows and grows. There's no way to stop nifaq from growing. So there you have to be careful how you go about your deen and your value for Allah and Rasul. A lot of background to the revelation of this surah in the Sirah. The books of Sirah have, various accounts. they have a common denominator, which is what I'll tell you, inshallah. There was this, at the time, the 5th year of Hijrah, there was a group of people known as the Banu Mustalaq. Banu Mustalaq was a tribe outside of Medina, and they were now, close with the Quraysh, and they wanted to launch an attack against the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. The Prophet ﷺ got word of it, so he prepared the Sahaba, took a few people as part of his militia, and left Medina to go towards Banu Mustalaq. And then the leader of Banu Mustalaq was Harith ibn Darar. Harith ibn Darar, he became Muslim later on. He is the father of Juwayriyah, who is the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ went and they defeated these people. Many of them were killed in the battle, and then the Muslims came back, and on the way back there were some skirmishes and a lot of discussion between the Muhajir and the Ansar, and they started a row, and they eventually wanted to fight and kill each other. The Prophet ﷺ rushed towards them and said, this is all, what do you call it, the illnesses, diseases of Jahiliyyah. In Islam, we don't grow with asabiyya, we don't do what we call tribalism, we don't affiliate ourselves with families, and we affiliate ourselves with Allah, Rasul, and Islam, and the Deen, and Quran. So we have a unity that transcends physical, alliances and tribal alliances. So the Prophet warned them that you're going to end up in hell if you do this. So then, to their credit, the Muhajir and Ansar, they conceded, and they, shook hands, and they were now brothers and sisters together. So the Prophet squashed that minor fitna. But then there were Munafiq in the group, like Abdullah ibn Ubay. He was there, and then he started to, rile up the Ansar, especially because he was from Medina, and he was a Munafiq. Everybody knew he was a Munafiq, but the Prophet never said anything to him, because you can't say that to somebody even on face value. You take him as a Muslim. So the Prophet was very politically correct, and the Sahaba, they had reservations about the whole attitude of the Prophet towards Abdullah ibn Ubay. So anyway, he started spreading rumors, and then in one private session he had with his stooges, and one Sahabi, young boy, was there. Zayd bin Arqam was there, listening to these people talk about the process of the Quran and Muslims and so on. He made a statement which the Quran repeats here in one of the ayah. لَا يُخْرِجَنَّ الْعَزُّ مِنَ الْأَذَلِ, that the mighty and powerful and the honorable will expel those who are dishonorable, meaning the Muslim. So Zayd bin Arqam, even as a young lad, he obviously took exception to the statement and told him, Abdullah ibn Ubay, that how dare you insult the Prophet, and how dare you insult Islam and the Muslims. I'm going to report you to the Prophet, and so on. So they now you have to understand how the politics work. So Abdullah ibn Ubay bin Salul, even though most people knew he's Munafiq, he was still a leader amongst the Ansar, and all the Ansar respected him. So now Zayd bin Arqam, when he made this very bold statement, and he started to tell everybody that this one, he's been saying this about the Prophet. So the Ansar started to taunt him, taunt Zayd. They said, well, why are you saying this? He's one of our leaders. Why are you saying this? And they said, no, this is what he said, and I'm going to stand by it, and I don't care what you say. So they almost excommunicated him. They ostracized him, Zayd, for a while. until it came to the Prophet. And the Prophet said, maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you're a young boy and you didn't hear properly, or maybe he said something else and you just thought he said. No, he said, this is what he said. I'm not backing down from what I heard. I know what he said, and this is my position. So certainly that led to one thing after another, and then as they were going back to Medina, then his son, Abdullah ibn Ubay bin Salul, his own son, whose name is Abdullah also, he told his father, I heard what he said, and I'm backing Zayd, and you're not going to get away with this. So there the Sahaba were saying that these people, Zayd bin Arqam and Abdullah, they said that Allah is going to reveal you, expose you for who you are, because this is what you said. So the Prophet was very calm about it, and Umar came to the Prophet and said, maybe we should just kill him, get rid of the problem. The Prophet said, you can't do that. It is politically incorrect. Do you want people to say outside of Medina that Muhammad is a leader who kills his own people? You see the PR, how he manages PR? Reputation goes a long way. You can't be that nonchalant about PR. It's a very sensitive issue. If people from outside Medina hear that Muhammad is a leader who kills his own people, they're not going to come into Islam. So even though it might have been technically correct for the Prophet to assassinate him, he didn't. That's how you manage. That's how you become a community leader. That's how you become a director. You can't become a director by being holier than thou and emotionally always correct. Make sure that he tastes the humble pie and just assassinate it. It would have been very easy for the Prophet to assassinate him. Nobody would have said anything. The Sahaba would have been happy if he killed him. But he thought, no, let's think further than our noses. It's not just about me. I have to think of future generations. I have to think of other people who may want to come into Islam, and they hear this, they won't come into Islam. So I have to, manage the mission more than my own personal vendetta and emotions. He knew he was whatever he was, and so he stopped himself, and he told Omar, we don't do this. We don't want to be known as the people who kill their own people. That's not what you want to be known as. The PR is sometimes you have to go with that. And that's how we will give fatwa. Also, the Darul Iftā, sometimes it may be allowed, but the PR will say no. Or sometimes it's not allowed, and the PR will say no. So there's a lot of social variables that goes into the fatwa. Okay. It's not as but other people on the street, they're emotional. They don't know anything better. They're into the micro. They'll understand the macro. The muftis will have a macro position with the micro obviously in place. But the non-muftis will have a micro position and they'll be emotional. How can you say this? So that's why there's a difference between academic Islam and street Islam. Yeah, you don't want street level Islam, because then street level Islam means you can bully everybody and tell people you're kafir. Academic Islam, you can't say to anyone you're kafir. You have to be very careful how you use your words, because that is the official representation of Islam in mainstream, basically. So anyway, this is the genius of the Prophet. So he let it go, and then they had other things, and and then obviously with this. The war, the battle they won against the Banu Mustalaq tribe, there are a lot of ghanima that came in, a lot of booty, a lot of goods came in, a lot of slaves came in, and so on. So then they had over 100 slave girls. Juwayriyah, who was also part of the ghanima, the daughter of Harith, the leader, she also came in as ghanima. She was now given to another Sahabi. The Sahabi said, I'll make you a mukatab. You can earn your freedom. Mukatab, kitaba, is when you tell the slave that you pay me this much over this many years and I'll free you. And then you're free. But the contract that Juwayriyah had from her owner was too exorbitant. So she came to the Prophet and said that, this is I am now a Muslim. I testify you are the Rasul of Allah. So she became Muslim. Her father also became Muslim. Alhamdulillah. The Prophet ﷺ looked into her case and said, yeah, this is a bit exorbitant. So anyway, so he paid her due, whatever it was, and she was freed, basically. And then he proposed to her, and the Prophet ﷺ married her. So that is the story of how Juwairiya became one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. And then through Juwairiya's, emancipation, the Sahaba said that this is not, we can't do this because Juwairiya is the daughter of a tribal leader, and it's not an Arab value to keep the tribal leaders, family members as slaves. So the Sahaba freed all the 100 slave girls, all of them. They all freed to go. That's why the Prophet said that Juwairiya has benefited her people much more than any other woman has benefited her people. Anyway, that's the story of Juwairiya, the wife of the Prophet. It all happened here in the Ghazwa of Banu Mustalaq. They came in, and as the Zayd bin Arqam was always super anxious that the Prophet is not happy with me for my conduct with Abdullah ibn Ubay, the Munafiq, and I'm going to stick with him just in case a wahi comes. He was so convinced a wahi will come. So that sometimes is in the seerah where the Sahaba predicated wahi. As Omar, as you know, had predicated wahi several times in his life. Likewise, here, this Sahabi predicated that the wahi is coming. Aisha, in the time when she was tested with the slander incident, she knew that wahi will come to exonerate her, and it came. Likewise, Zayd bin Arqam knew wahi will come to exonerate me. So now he was there with the Prophet, and he saw the effects of wahi coming on the Prophet. He started perspiring. The camel he was on started to sit down, and that was a sign that wahi is coming. So the Prophet, when he came out from the reception of wahi, said to Zayd that you are right. Allah has exonerated you, and the Munafiq has been exposed. And the whole surah was revealed to exonerate Zayd. Basically, the whole surah. Okay? So that is now the background to the revelation of this surah. It's a fascinating story, and so on. So there are some insightful messages, as you know, with every surah, every ayah of the Quran has gems and pearls in it. So we'll go through these. But that's basically the background, the backdrop of what we call Sha'nun Nuzul, background to the revelation of the surah. The surah then is placed here amongst these surahs that talk about gathering the ummah together, meaning this formula is how you should not behave so that you don't disunite the Muslims. إذا جاءك المنافقون, when the munafiqun come to you, قالوا نشهد, they say, we testify, إنك لرسول الله, indeed you are the message of Allah. والله يعلم إنك لرسوله, but the truth is Allah knows you are His Rasul. You don't need the testimony of liars, cheats, and deceivers to tell you that you are Rasul. Allah's knowledge suffices for you. والله يشهد إن المنافقين لكاذبون. Allah testifies, in contrast to their testimony, that the munafiq, they indeed are liars. They do not speak the truth. So Allah is now showing the Muslims after Banu Mustalaq that there is a group of munafiqeen amongst you. So now the, demographics change. First, it was either you are Muslim or a kafir. The Prophet abolished the idea of muhajir and ansar, as you know. He abolished the idea of you from Makkah, you from Medina, but they still had this separation between Iman and Kufr. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. So there is a group of people in the community who are kafir, and you should believe that. Very unlike some people today who believe that these people, they're not really kafir. Allah says, no, قُلْ, announce to people, أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, you are kafir. Don't be shy to say they are kafir. Yeah, don't be that much of a wimp. You can't even say they're kafir. Why are you saying that? Why say they're not kafir? They're kafir. They don't believe in the Rasul, they're kafir. End of story. Why are you apologizing for their kufr? So likewise here, Allah now reveals a surah which now changes the demographics. So you have Muslim, you have kafir, and you also have munafiq. Now you have three groups. Okay. Yeah. So that's how now the Sahaba say, oh wow, we have another group of kafirs to contend with, so we have to be super alert. This was for maintaining security of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Allah is informing Muslims that there is an enemy within. Don't be naive about the issue. There's an enemy from within, and that enemy is a munafiq. So be on guard. Protect the Rasul. Protect your deen and Islam. Protect yourselves from the munafiq. Yeah, so that's why in his speeches, the Prophet would say, Ayatul Munafiq. The sign of a munafiq is this and that. So they will remain alert. Oh, this is a sign of. What is a sign of a munafiq? That when he speaks, he tells lies. It's a sign. So if you see somebody in the Muslim Ummah lying, then be careful, be suspicious. He might be a munafiq. Then he said on the other side, that if you see someone coming for Isha and Fajr in Jama'ah, then you must know he's a true believer. Right? People quote, the hadith, Isha and Fajr in Jama'at is very good, but the political background is this. Because Isha and Fajr were always offered in the dark. It was nighttime. They had no candles in the masjid. They had no lamps. There was no light. So you couldn't see who's who next to you in Salat in Isha and Fajr. So the Prophet said that if you see somebody coming for Isha and for Fajr on a regular basis, and you know he's there, then you must believe he's a true believer. He's not a munafiq. You understand how the Prophet is now? Coordinating the demographics so that the Sahaba on one side, they remain alert. This is the ayah, the sign of munafiq, that when he argues, he swears. He's not in control of his language. That's the sign of munafiq. And then when he is given a trust, he is untrustworthy. That's a sign of munafiq. So these moral, ethical principles were there to demonstrate the iman of a believer or the nifaq, possible nifaq. So the Muslims now remain alert. They say, if I lie, then everybody's going to say I'm not a believer. If I swear and use the wrong words, everyone's going to say I'm not a believer. If I now misuse somebody's trust, then everybody will say he's a munafiq. So raising the bar for ethics, raise the bar of iman. And that is how you should take these prophetic statements in light of this political reality, this siyasa, that this is to protect the institution of the Prophet, the person who is the Prophet, and to protect Muslims and Islam. That this is how you become a leader. This is now prophetic strategy. So yeah, you'll read the hadith in Bukhari, Muslim, the hadith, But the actual reality is that the Prophet ﷺ is strategizing in the Ummah that the best way to ensure that Muslims are protected is if Muslims practice Islam. That they must practice Islam to show themselves. The Munafiq will not come to Isha and Fajr because he hides. He said, no one's going to miss me if I'm not there. They can't see me anyway. So that's the beauty of the Prophet understanding that Muslims now have become alert that there's another group in our midst who is a munafiq and who is detrimental and dangerous to the life of the Prophet and also to the life of Muslims in Islam. So Allah says, Al-Munāfiqūn. إِذَا جَاءَكُمُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ. When the munafiq comes, there's a group now. So be aware, be alert. It's not just that they don't like the Prophet. It's more than that. They're very dangerous. اتخذوا أيمانهم جنة فصدوا عن سبيل الله إنهم ساء ما كانوا يعملون. What they do is that they take their oaths, and their vows to be a shield against their nifaq, against their hypocrisy. Meaning that they will swear in the name of Allah, فَصَدُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and they will prevent Muslims from the path of Allah, and they will stop Muslims from being generous and going for salat and the dhikr of Allah, and they'll prevent Muslims from loving the Prophet ﷺ and helping the cause of Islam. But they will use Allah's name to do that because they're liars. They have no shame in using Allah's name in vain. So that is another sifa, another characteristic, another unfortunate sin and evil value that they bring into the community. And the purpose of this is fasaddu an sabilillah. They want to prevent people from climbing the tree of Iman and going into Jannah. They don't want Muslims to go into Jannah, so they do everything, fake promises and false oaths. And so they know that they will never keep their promise, but they make the promise anyway. Sounds like what we call political diplomacy. You sign a treaty with a country and you know you're going to break it. You say there's a ceasefire, then they don't care about the ceasefire. You go and destroy the Muslims anyway. That's nifaq. You take this to the political realm. That's why I want you to not be stuck in the religious thing. Expand it to the religious domain so that you have a world view that this is present today in the political world. That they will make false promises, they will lie, they will take an oath, and they'll swear on the Bible to speak the truth in court. And they know they're lying. Wallahu yashhadu innahum innal munafiqina lakadhibun. Allah testifies that they're liars. So read it in their faces. So they make treaties here in this country. They're known for their treachery and deception anyway. They broke treaty after treaty after treaty with this indigenous, Indian population in this country, and they just destroyed them. Complete genocide. They couldn't care less about their treaty, their promise. They would just tear it up. To heck with this. Might is right. So the false promises and fake treaties, Muslims have to be aware, astute, and reasonably reliable, so that they know that, okay, these people are coming, they're going to say this, we know they're lying. Then you must have a plan to counter their lie. You must be strategic, and you must have foresight that you don't get caught in their web of deception. These were the politicians of the Ummah. That they're not naive. Oh, they promised. Okay. They promise and they kill you. So much for their promise. Right? Yeah, that's why this surah is important for the political climate of today. So لا يلدغ المؤمن من جحر واحد مرتين. timeless statement of the Prophet, that a believer is never bitten from the same snake hole twice. Once bitten, twice shy. There's a track record, so go with the track record. Don't be so naive and holy and pious. We can accommodate them. They're being kind the way it should be kind. But they've scammed you throughout history. That is their track record. That's their MO. That's the only thing they can do. So why are you now acquiescing to whatever it is they're saying? Because they use sweet words and diplomatic language to deceive you. So don't be that naive. So there's that. فَصَدُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلًا. They don't want Muslims to practice Islam, which is the bottom line. They're so jealous that Muslims actually have a passion for their religion. So don't be that naive. That it will kill you, which unfortunately is happening. So we have to be aware that in our worldview, we don't go overboard in accommodating everything the non-Muslim says. We're so kind to the non-Muslim and so stingy with the Muslim. Well, we won't trust the Muslim, but we'll trust the Kafir in everything we do. If there's an academic scientific report that says this and it goes against the Quran, so no, look at this is what science is. Did you know that they're liars, basically? Lying is part of their agenda. That's their MO. They love lying. They can't live without lying. And so even at the academic level, be aware that you monitor everybody else's ideologies and theories based on the Quran. So you have a measuring tape. You have a yardstick, use that yardstick. If it doesn't fit the yardstick, then they say, no, we're not going there. The level of awareness that the Quran is infusing in the believer, that if you want to be part of human society, then you cannot afford to tolerate liars. Deal with them the way you deal with any liars. Say, okay, we'll take your advice under consideration, and then you do what you need to do. You understand? You have to be smarter than that. Yeah. Don't be fake. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا إِنَّهُمْ سَاءَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. It is very evil what they do. This is because ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا. This is because they believe and then they don't believe. And they deceive and they fake their belief. فَطُبِعَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. And then it is now stamped on their hearts. The seal is now on their hearts. The seal of kufr is stamped on their hearts. فَهُمْ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. But they don't understand the repercussions, the implications of their deception. They don't understand. That's why they don't see the danger and detriment, which is suicidal, basically. That they will end up in the lowest level of hell. That's why they don't understand. They have no fiqh. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُمْ وَإِنْ يَقُولُوا تَسْمَعْ لِقَوْلِهِمْ كَأَنَّهُمْ خُشُبٌ مُسَنَّدَةٌ. Yeah, these are other evil traits. Kufr, as I said, has natural effects. This is one of the natural effects of nifaq. What is that? As a community, that they will be sophisticated and they will look very good, neat and tidy and organized and spectacular and polished, with a lot of gloss on them, a lot of glory on them. So Allah says openly to the Rasul, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ, if you see them, Ya Rasulullah, تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُمْ, their bodies will amaze you. Their physical features will amaze you. Their organization will amaze you. Their cosmetics will amaze you. Their presentation will just blow you away. Allah is saying this to the Rasul. So not everything that glitters is gold. So Muslims are in awe of the order and the sophistication and the glamour and the spectacular, what do you call it, aesthetics, make-believe of the non-Muslims. Super. Whenever you hear Muslims say, oh, they did it so well. So that's exactly what the Quran is saying. Why are you amazed with their organization when underneath their organization is nothing except kufr? How can you even concede to a kufr system that displays this level of articulation, sophistication, organization, and then say they're good? So Allah said, wake up Muslims. If you look at them, their bodies, their physical bodies and appearance will amaze you. You'll be falling over your feet backwards when you'll be amazed. So there we have to take everything within stride and say, okay, yeah, there's always an agenda behind them. So sometimes you get people speaking on behalf of Islam. Right? This man came and he's a great scholar of Islam. He's done research in Islam and he gives a talk at the Islamic Foundation everywhere. Oh, such an amazing scholar. But he's a kafir. How can you be amazed by him? وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُمْ. If you see them, you'll be amazed by their physical appearances. Don't you have any sense, aql whatsoever? Why are you giving him the podium in the first place? He's not supposed to be in the masjid in the first place. Never mind talking to Muslims, never mind talk to Muslims, and never mind dazzle you with his so-called superficial knowledge. It's because you don't know your deen that you're amazed by the kafir. If you knew your deen, you would never be amazed by a kafir. You just say he's a kafir. Why am I listening to him? He has no nur, he has no basis upon which he can represent Islam, the Quran, and so on. And if he speaks, if they speak, you listen, because you're mesmerized by his charisma and his magnetic appeal. You're mesmerized. You listen very carefully, attentively. You take notes. You'll go back and listen to the recording 10 times. You'll be so attentive. But if there's a miskeen khatib who dresses like an alim and maulana, you'll never listen. You'll fall asleep when he's talking. When this munafiq comes onto the podium on the mimbar and he speaks, oh, I'm super alert. I got to listen to every word he's saying. I have to listen to the method, the presentation. So this level of nifaq is in the community. So when you listen to munafiq, you become munafiq. That's the danger. So the Quran Hadith is very clear that there's guidance only from Allah, the Rasul, the Sahaba, and the Tabi'in, whoever follows them. Anyone else outside the pale of Islam, they're not worth listening to. They can say what they want. And obviously, you'll have the Muslim idiots who say, Al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min. That wisdom is the lost property of a believer. Understand the Hadith, you idiot. What's the Rasul saying? It's the lost property of a believer. Whose property is it? It's not his. It's yours. So you take it and you don't give credit to him because it's not his property. Right? And this one said this is a magnificent statement, it's timeless statement. But the Rasul is saying, for you to plagiarize a hikmah from a non-Muslim is perfectly okay. Take it and say it's yours. It's your property, which you lost. It belongs to you, not him. Dalla. Dalla obviously also means that lost, in a sense, misguided. Right? Yeah. So there you have to understand what the Rasul is saying. Have some self-esteem, have some pride in you for being a Muslim. You say, okay, this man, He's a lot of wisdom. And most people every day in the morning, they get this, blurb on their social media that this is what the statement of the day, saying of the day, wise words of the day, and it's all them, kind of glorifying. All this is so full of amazing inspirations. But the Prophet said, it doesn't belong to them, it belongs to you. So you take it and then say it's yours. Have some pride. Right? And they say, no, they don't have any hikmah. It's not possible for them to have hikmah because they don't have nur. You need nur to have a level of hikmah. The Bible says here, وَيَقُولُوا تَسْمَعْ لِقَوْلِهِ. If they speak, you listen to them. The munafiq. And so on. So that's why when you want to assign somebody a public speaking role on the mimbar, then don't put the one who is a fasiq on the mimbar. The one who shows no visible respect for Islam and the deen, just because he's a PhD in, social sciences, whatever. You can't do that because you're destroying Islam. You're misrepresenting Islam. That's a sign of nifaq, open nifaq. Obviously, you can't say that munafiq because there's no wahi to it, but it's a sign, a visible sign that this is now not the way Muslims want to be, and so on. كَأَنَّهُمْ خُشُبٌ مُسَنَّدَةٌ. As if they're just logs. Logs propped up one above the other. Khushub is the wooden logs, meaning that they don't have any substance. They're just thick as wooden logs are. There's no subtlety in them. There's no wisdom in them. There's nothing there. And now, since they've been cut off from the tree, they're dead. The only thing you can use a wooden log for, if they're chopped up that way, is you use them for firewood, and perhaps you can use it to build a wooden log, basically, a lodge, basically, a cabin. But they have no real life in them, and so on. So we have to see this, that the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is being advised that you have another enemy to contend with. You had the Quraysh, you had the Mushrik, now you have this one. So contend with this one too. So prepare yourself mentally and ideologically that the Muslims must be aware of the enemy from within. Don't be naive about it. Every Muslim is good. No, be careful. And then every Muslim has a duty to practice Islam so that others don't get an idea that you may be munafiq. Yeah, if your Islam is not visible in the community, there is something wrong with you. So, Muslims should show their Islam. You can't hide Islam. Oh, I don't want to be in the community. I don't want them to see what I do. You should. People in the community should see you as a noble, practicing Muslim. You should be visible where you need to be visible. You can't hide. Hiding is now the essence of nifaq. That you're hiding something that's good. It's good that you're in the masjid. It's good that you give charity and you announce your charity. It's good that you participate in community affairs and issues, and you're good that you're giving advice to people, and you're good that the people see you as member of the community society. It is not good that you're so awkwardly private that nobody knows whether you're Muslim or not. That is not good. So the idea of Islam and Shahada means to testify openly in public. So when you take the Shahada, you are openly in public declaring you are a Muslim. You can't hide that. That's called Shahada. That's the first pillar of Islam. The first pillar of Islam is to expose your Islam, not to hide it. So there's no such thing as having a private Islam. You have to be there. That when you're needed in the masjid, you should be in the masjid. When there's a janazah, you should be there at least to mourn with your brother and be in the janazah if you can be there. Or at least give a helping hand to people in the community so that people know that you're part of the ummah. كأنهم خشب مسندة يحسبون كل صيحة عليم. Another maybe kind of sense of insecurity, immense insecurity of the munafiq. And this happens with some of the people who are guilty of genocide in the world today, that they believe every cry is against them. They'll spook. Why is he talking? How dare you say anything against the Holocaust? How dare you say that Jews are being persecuted? How dare you say that? They think every cry is against them. يحسبون كل صيحة عليهم. Any criticism is against them. They feel that they are victimized everywhere. In every corner, in every conversation, they feel that everybody's victimizing them, everybody's targeting them. This is a sign of munafiq. Insecurity, total insecurity. They can't stand the idea that, God forbid, somebody might say something against them. Okay, they have no backbone, basically. Right? So that's why they will react by controlling the media, controlling mass media, controlling whatever it is they need to control to make sure they have their narrative, which is now stuffed down the throats of everybody else. There's only one narrative, and that's our narrative. There's no such thing as liberalism, because they don't appreciate anyone else's opinion. Their opinion is the only opinion you can listen to, you can hear, you can watch, you can analyze. Other than that, they will not allow you. I mean, they won't even report incidents that do not favor them. If an incident happens in the world and it doesn't help their cause, they won't report it. No such thing as honest journalism, because everything is a smokescreen. Why? يحسبون كل صيحة عليم. They think every cry is against them. Everything that anyone does is to discredit them. In order, as a reaction to that, they become violent in what you call it, owning, and monopolizing all the outlets of media and education and so on. So this is how it is. So you can't say anything that is remotely good about Muslims. The Hindus, they took out the whole history of Tipu Sultan from their curriculum in India. They say he didn't exist. Why? They're insecure. How can you say that? His villa is still there. The place where he used to take the British and kill them, that place is still there. People still go and visit them. But how can you say he didn't exist? They're insecure. Now, people say that Jesus didn't exist. You heard the latest rumors from so-called scientists. Jesus is a myth. He never actually existed. There's no proof that he existed. We have proof. The Quran tells us. That's more than enough proof for us. You're so insecure with the opposite narrative. The opposite narrative is based on the haqq. Your narrative is based on the batil. So you will own, control every outlet for you to promote your batil, but at the end of the day, the haqq will prevail. And who's going to do that? Muslims. Muslims have to make sure that the haqq speaks, and you speak the haqq wherever you are and say, no, this is not true. How can you say Tipu Sultan did not exist when he's mentioned in your own song, Star Spangled Banner, was it? They mentioned him in the song. The Americans mentioned him because the Americans liked anybody who defeated the British. So they honored him in their song, their national song. Listen to it, you'll see it. He's mentioned. The rockets, when it talks about the rockets, those rockets were the ingenious invention of Tipu Sultan in his army. That he would fire rockets of nails into the British army and defeat them. So he's mentioned, they paid a tribute to him. So now take that. You want to remove that from your history books? So you have to give it to them. Don't be defensive. Be on the offensive. Make sure you speak the truth. Make sure that you're in their face and say, this is absolutely false, this is wrong. This is a false narrative. We don't stand for it, and you should not stand for it. Humul adu, they are the enemy. They are the enemy. Allah says, Humul adu. Fahdharhum. So beware of them. Don't be naive about the idea that because of their, cosmetic plastic smiles and diplomatic language and sophisticated articulation that they're going to do something for you. Allah says openly, Humul adu, they are the enemy. Take a lesson from the realities of Sirah. Fahdharhum. So be warned of them. Pay attention to their agenda. قاتلهم anna yufakun. May Allah destroy them. قاتلهم May Allah kill them. Anna yufakun. How are they going to turn away from the truth and speak falsehood and so on? Anyway, so this is a summary of this surah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants Muslims to remain united and be aware of the enemy from within. Don't be naive about, people who do not follow Islam, don't love Islam, don't allow you to promote Islam. Just be careful that you don't have too many ties with them, and don't let them, rule you, dictate you, and lead you. Nasallallahu al-afiyah. Allah give us all tawfiq. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala. Ya rahmati.